Supplier Diversity. I'm going to give everyone about a minute or so to just have our participants come on board, and then we'll get started. We're thrilled to have you all here today. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us here today. We wanted to take a moment to welcome you to our webinar to learn more about supplier diversity in Canada. Many of you are here today because during our registration for our recent StrikeUP conference, 47% of conference attendees indicated to us that they wanted to hear more about supplier diversity. That was over 1,400 of you. We were so thrilled with this response. We reached out to all of Canada's supply diversity councils and wanted to launch our first webinar under our series StrikeUP Connects and bring you the topic of learning about supplier diversity. So as you're aware, supplier diversity opens the doors for Canadian business owners or for Canadian businesses who have diverse ownership to supply chains right across Canada. Diverse business owners experience barriers to success simply due to their diversity, and that has contributed to their ability to constantly innovate, be nimble, to adapt, troubleshoot, and provide valuable business solutions. Many corporations in Canada are also taking advantage of the opportunity to work with suppliers who have these skills. Supply councils are in place to source and certify diverse businesses and then connect them through varying methods to corporations and governments who are specifically looking to add them to their supply chain. So Canada's supply councils link corporate Canada with women-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses, Indigenous and visible minority business owners, disabled entrepreneurs, and veterans in Canada who are business owners. And joining us here today, we do have representatives from 6 of our councils. We have the Canadian Aboriginal Minority Supplier Council, the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business, the Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, Inclusive Workplace and Supply Council of Canada, WEConnect International, and Women Business Enterprises Canada. So those of you who are on the call today include entrepreneurs who are interested in becoming certified, organizations who are wishing to purchase, and we also have some advisors on the call who are looking to better educate their clients on supplier diversity certification benefits. We're going to start today by giving each panelist a quick minute to introduce themselves. Then we will move into our Q&A for the webinar discussion. If you have any questions of our panelists today, please use the chat function and we will take questions that way. So first, let's start with Cassandra from the Canadian Aboriginal Minority Supplier Council.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Devin. I'm delighted to be here with StrikeUP as well as with my fellow peers. Again, my name is Cassandra Dorrington. I'm the President and CEO of the Canadian Aboriginal and Minority Supplier Council, or we term CAMSC. So I heard Devin fall over that word a couple of times, so it's just CAMSC. We're a national organization, 17 years in operation, and our particular mandate is to champion business relationships and economic growth of the Canadian supply chain through the inclusion of Indigenous and minority-owned businesses. We do that in 4 different ways: connect, certify, develop, and advocate. And so we certify 51% owned, managed, controlled Indigenous and or minority business owners. We connect them into the supply chain of corporate Canada and government and beyond. We provide development through a series of resources and or whether it be mentorship, webinars, other resources and tools that we have that we develop suppliers, as well as we help to develop corporates and as they build their robust supplier development programs. And we advocate for public policy primarily. We do advocate in front of corporates to make sure they have a more inclusive supply chain, but primarily we're looking for public policy. All in all, let me just say that we're excited to be here. The number of diverse suppliers who are identified are growing rapidly. The opportunities are out there. So we're looking to see how more we can make sure this becomes an economic wealth or spread going across the nation as we see more diverse suppliers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Cassandra. And next up, we will go to Philip, joining us from the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to join you all here today. As mentioned, my name is Philip Sharma. I'm the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business, also known as CCAB. To begin with, I would like to acknowledge that I am joining you from Toronto, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and now home to many other First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. CCAB is a member-based organization with close to 1,400 members comprised of Indigenous and non-Indigenous members. Our mission is to promote, strengthen, and enhance a prosperous Indigenous economy. One of the programs I oversee is Supply Change, our Indigenous procurement strategy that aims to increase procurement opportunities for Indigenous businesses. The Supply Change program does have a number of pillars, including certification. So we do certify businesses on ownership and control. And I look forward to discussing further with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. And next we'll go to Daryl, who's joining us from the Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce.
Great. Good afternoon, and thanks, Devin. It's great to be with everybody today. So as Devin mentioned, my name is Daryl. I'm the CEO of the CGLCC, which is Canada's LGBT+ Chamber of Commerce. So we are similar to Cassandra. I like to compare ourselves to the other councils. And so Cassandra's a little bit older than we are, but we've been around for 15 years. Our mandate is very much to support Canada's LGBT+ entrepreneurs. And so we do that through a variety of different ways. We have a youth program to support young entrepreneurs looking to start or grow their business. We have a global program that helps to open the doors internationally for our LGBT businesses. But the reason why we're here today is, and which is really our core program, is our Supplier Diversity program, where we act as a certifying body for LGBT-owned businesses across Canada and help to create access and opportunities for them to connect with corporations and our public entities to hopefully do business with them. So certainly we'll get into more detail on that later, but that's a little bit of who we are.
Thank you, Daryl. And now we have Deirdre from Inclusive Workplace Supply Council of Canada. And I do see some questions coming in. I'll let the panelists introduce themselves and then we'll go to the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Devin, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As Devin mentioned, my name is Deirdre Guy, and I am the founder of the Inclusive Workplace and Supply Council of Canada, or IWSCC. So I'm the baby Supply Council, if we want to compare the ages. So we are the newest Supply Council to the group that's here with you today. And we work largely the same as the other supply councils, and as you can see, we work together quite regularly. And so the IWSCC certifies businesses that are at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled by disabled people or veterans who are entrepreneurs here in Canada. So we have a number of other things that we do within the organization, such as supporting our corporates with inclusive workplaces. And currently, workplaces aren't such a thing anymore, so we also are supporting our corporates with finding truly inclusive and accessible software platforms to use for their events. And we have a number of great research projects underway to help update statistics in Canada as it relates to disabled business owners as well as veteran business owners. So thanks very much. I'm super happy to be here today and help everybody learn a little bit more about our passion.
Thank you, Deirdre. And we will go to Stephanie from WEConnect International next.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'm Stephanie Fontaine, and I am the Regional Director for the US and Canada for WEConnect International. So we're a global organization made up of corporate members. And our mission is to help drive money into the hands of women by enabling them to compete in a global marketplace. And as some of the others have said, we certify women-owned businesses in that are 51% plus owned, controlled, and operated by women. And we do this in 47 countries, including Canada. And we also register women-owned businesses in over 110 countries. So we have educational programs for women who want to access, women businesses who want to access supply chain. And we also help our member buyers to further develop their programs, their supplier diversity programs. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Stephanie. And now we have Sylvia from the Women Business Enterprises of Canada.
Hello, everybody. My pleasure to be here and joining everybody. VB Canada is a Canadian nonprofit organization that I'm fortunate to lead. My name is Sylvia Pentag. I'm the president of VB Canada. And we certify Canadian women-owned businesses that are majority owned, managed, and controlled. We've been doing so since 2009. And we also partner with governments and corporate organizations who want to diversify their supply chains. So our mission is to bring more women-owned businesses into large corporate and government supply chains across Canada and south of the border in the US as well. So our certification is recognized not only by Canadian organizations and corporations, but also by US government as well as US international organizations. And in addition to certification, we also have a Canadian Woman brand, which we heavily promote, promoting Canadian women-owned businesses internationally in foreign markets. We help women-owned businesses understand procurement processes, supplier requirements within our corporate membership. We help with training, networking. We run plenty of networking events among women-owned businesses, but also connecting women to the buyers. And as a council, we also do lots of training and support for corporations and governments who are developing or growing and improving their supplier diversity programs. We provide training, we provide consulting. We also provide data services to help them measure and track the success of their supplier diversity programs.
All right, thank you, Sylvia, and thank you to all of our panelists for joining us here today. I'd like to get started now with some questions and answers. First, Sylvia, I will start with you. I'm hoping you can explain to us a little bit about supplier diversity, how it works and what exactly it means to be certified. We did receive a question in there as well, which probably ties into this with if you're 50% women-owned and 50% minority-owned, perhaps you can help us understand that process as well. Thanks, Sylvia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Devin. Great question. I love to start with the definitions, right, to bring us all to the same page. So technically speaking, supplier diversity is a business strategy. So this strategy ensures that there is a diverse supplier base in the corporate and government supply chains. But practically speaking, supplier diversity is actually all about building relationships. It's about making those necessary connections with the buyers, with the supplier diversity professionals within those large corporate and government supply chains, as well with each other. So many times women-owned businesses specifically are smaller and they cannot compete against large suppliers. So we opened up our VB database to help VBs to connect with each other, to partner up, increase their capacity and capabilities, and then compete against larger and win larger contracts. So I know that all the councils work similarly. We support our suppliers and we help them to connect to the corporations and governments, to the supply chains. We provide education, etc. So it's all about that building relationships, building connections, and connecting suppliers to the buyers. On that question regarding 50-50, I am going to send it to Deidre because I would really like to take, for Deidre to take on that second question, when, what it means to be certified.
Thanks, Sylvia. Yeah, so what it means to be certified, certification as a diverse supplier means that your business is at least 51% owned and operated and controlled by one or more diverse people. So Darryl and Stephanie will be sharing a little bit more about the actual process itself, but your diverse supplier designation provides you access to selling opportunities that you may not have had in the past. It's an access tool. As mentioned earlier, Canadian corporations and governments are looking to add diverse suppliers to their supply chain, but they don't necessarily want to set up an internal process for vetting and sourcing and verifying these businesses. So that's where the supply councils come in. We certify your business and then provide a variety of opportunities to connect with the corporations and governments that are looking for you. So prior to starting the IWSCC, I worked for a diverse supplier. And in my experience, the networking is second to none. Imagine speaking to top purchasers directly to tell them about your company, your goods and services, and they want to talk to you because your business has the diverse supplier designation. And I always encourage suppliers, pardon me, to advertise their diverse supplier certification everywhere. Email, signature, media releases, websites, business cards. More and more big businesses in Canada and governments are recognizing the benefits of working with diverse businesses, so your certification will be even better to have. Certification is not a guarantee of business, however. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's another tool in your marketing toolbox, so look at it as part of your marketing budget. You still have to do the work of connecting with purchasers. Your goods and services have to be on point. Your prices have to be on point. All that remains the same, but what you have now is an access level that you may not have experienced in the past. And Devin, if you could please do me a favor and remind me what that question was that Sylvia wanted me to address. I just want to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
I think you are. We were talking a little bit about what it means to be certified, but also what happens if you are 50% women owned. Like, could you be certified as both a woman and also an Aboriginal minority as well?
Yeah, so we don't currently have a structure in place for that, and it's not the first time this question has been asked. So it is something that we are addressing internally. Unfortunately, the way the supply councils are structured at the moment, we don't have the ability to do that type of cross-council certification. But we do recognize that that is definitely a diverse business. And so it is something that we're looking at very seriously. We have to sort out a method to really manage that effectively.
Thank you, Sylvia and Deirdre. Next, Darryl, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about what the process looks like for certifications, what some of the costs are. As well, there's a question coming in on the chat about costs for startups and if that's, different or sort of how that works on the costing side and the process as well for certification.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Devin. I think, and I'm going to speak in kind of generalities here because, there are 6 councils here. So, in general, the certification process is fairly similar, but there are there may be unique aspects to each council. So I'm going to talk generalities, but if you want specifics, then my recommendation would certainly be to reach out to any of our councils following this. But in general, there's kind of four steps, if you will. And I think that the key thing to keep in mind is that there is a lot of rigor that goes into the certification process because, as Sylvia and Deirdre mentioned, is all of our councils are acting as basically the third-party vetter for our corporate and government partners. So we are responsible for ensuring that diverse businesses are in fact that 51% owned, operated, and controlled. So really the first step is an application process. So there's a very detailed application that each of our councils would have that you as a diverse business would complete and submit. And then the second stage is really an assessment. These all used to be done in person as an on-site assessment. Clearly, given the world now that we live in, I believe we've all shifted to purely an online assessment. But that is where we have assessors within our organizations that meet with the owners to really to go through the application and get to have a thorough understanding of the business. But it's also our way of ensuring, again, it's validating that the individuals actually are fully the 51% owned, operated, and controlled. So that gives us that really deep insight into the company. The third part then really is around certification. application. So, we take the information back from the application and the assessment, we review them internally. Some of us have, I believe we all have committees that then review the applications, review the assessments, and then we'll deem the application successful or not. And then the kind of the fourth step really is around, I would say the fourth step is maybe the hardest one is really around working it and taking that certification and actually to Deirdre's point is actually leveraging that and putting it to use, because it is another tool that you can leverage, but as I like to say, just it's kind of like a gym membership. It's only as good as often as you use it, right? So I think that's a really key element. Maybe in terms of, I'll pass it maybe over to Stephanie, and maybe if you want to talk a little bit about the costs and the duration that it takes, Stephanie.
Okay, thanks everyone. I think, yeah, we're all on the same page that our processes are similar in general, so I'm not going to repeat any of that, but for us at WEConnect International, we say it takes 90 days to be certified. So if you call us and you want to be certified next week, it's probably not going to happen. And the reason why we say 90 days is because, as Daryl said, it is a very robust process. And there are a lot of documents that you need to submit depending on the structure of your organization. And once you start the application, at least for us in our system, it will tell you what documents you need to go forward with, and it will tell you the fee. But if you don't have all your documents, then you will go get them. You may need to see your lawyer or accountant, and that adds to to the number of days. But in general, everyone who starts an application with us will get an answer in 90 days or less. For us, and this may be different with the others, but our fee structure is a tiered approach. So depending on what your annual revenue is per year. So if it's under $5 million per year for your business, the fee is $575. And our costs are in US dollars because we're an international organization, but I believe it ends up being, the competitive rate that the other councils have. I believe we're all pretty close in those costs. And then if you're 5 million or more, or 10 million or more, for us, it does go up because of the complexity of those business structures. And I do want to address, I think, Devin, you said there was a question about, was it like a special fee for startups? Yeah, so we don't have any special fees. So it's the same for everyone based on the revenue. And I should add that while startups are, welcome to apply for certification, we always caution our applicants that those who will make the most of certification usually have 2 years of business under their belt, because in that case they would have their financial statements for those 2 years. And also you need to look at what are the supply chains asking for. So they may be asking for even more documentations than we are. So it's important to look at that as well. Yeah, I think I answered all the components to this question, but Daryl, Devin, speak up if I didn't.
Let me just build on a little bit just really quickly, because I think that you're right that there's kind of two models for the pricing. I think that there's the tiered based on the size of the company. Our model, and I think a couple other councils have different models where it is just a flat fee. So it doesn't matter what size of business you are. And I think, again, across the table, I think the prices range anywhere from, I believe for us, it's $450 and I think up to $750 and maybe up to $900. So, again, I would encourage you all, depending on your constituency group, to check with the specific council here. The other thing I will mention is that, and to kind of build on what Stephanie's last comment was, it's important that we will certify any size of business. So you don't have to be, a medium or large size business. We also do, certify small businesses, self-entrepreneurs. And so, so there's different, you don't have to necessarily be one of those large companies. Certification could be of interest and of value to you.
Thank you both for answering that. Just so attendees who are on the call do know, following this webinar, you will be receiving a document that will have a direct email of a person to contact in each of these organizations as well. So if you have specific further questions for each of those organizations, you will receive that contact information as well on that. I do want to go back to, Cassandra, I'm going to have you start with this, which is the certification process. How does it work in terms of globally or nationally? But I'm hoping yourself and Philip can also talk a little bit about, we're getting some continual questions about startups. So some overall advice about this process and how that works for startups and when is that best time. I think, Daryl, you touched on it after about 2 years. But more about the eligibility. Are you even eligible until you hit a certain point? If you could cover that as well, and the global and national certification, how it works.
Okay, thanks, Devin. Let me start up with the startup one first. Okay, based on what we do for certification, if you're starting an organization, you don't have to have the financials in place that you've been in business for 2 to 3 years for us. We're looking for a business plan will suffice, because we see people who leave businesses and start an organization, and we're not waiting for them for the 2 years to get started. So if they have a business plan with the pro forma financials attached to it, they qualify for coming into our network. And again, we have a tiered structure for certification, much like you see from CCAB or a few others, is that based on your top line revenue, it's tied to what your fee for becoming certified is. So if you're a startup with no revenue, you'd be coming in at X fee, which we start out about $350 or so. So then it allows you with minimal dollars, but with your idea and your business plan in place to get in the network and start to liaison with our corporate members and or suppliers, depending on who you're looking to do business with. So hopefully that puts some perspective, because again, each of us takes it differently, but that puts some perspective on if you're starting up, if you're new to this, does it make sense to join the network? Of course it does. And then it's finding your right spot in the network. Again, your opportunities will be tied to your value proposition and the corporate you're reaching out to, because we all know that if right now we're in the time of so much change, corporates are looking for novel ideas. So your startups could be a novel idea. They're waiting for you, not waiting for you for a couple of years down the road. We want to provide you that opportunity to get in. So that's a little bit about startups. Let me just move a little bit and then I'll turn it over to Philip about certification globally and nationally. CAMSC is a national organization, so our certification for sure covers from coast to coast to coast. We're looking for suppliers all across the nation. But also with our CAMSC certification, you've heard from some of the others, we have partners in the US. So we're recognized by NMSDC. So you can get certification that takes you down into the US. We have partners globally. So whether it's in the UK, China, Australia, South Africa, we partner so your certification is recognized from there. And so what we'd like to do when we have suppliers show up is if you want to go beyond borders, we're excited about that, because your certification, we do the heavy lifting getting you certified, but it then takes you into going into the regions in the US. So you can actually work if you have identified an area down there where you want to work there. Or if you've identified you're ready, you're export ready, and you want to go into the Australian network, how do we help you get in? That's what we do from a sort of a national into sort of global certification, if that makes sense. And then I'll hand it over to Philip to talk a little bit more on top of that.
Thanks, thanks, Cassandra. I actually just wanted to talk a little bit about the startups as well. At CCAB, we are sort of unique compared to this because we do also have Indigenous or Aboriginal owned businesses that haven't certified. Because we are a member-based organization, we do provide services to businesses that come in that are startups that are looking to expand their businesses. The certification process that we do does not have a charge associated to it. It's just if your company wants to be recognized as a certified Aboriginal business, we do require the paperwork and documentation to show that. So I did state our membership fees on the chat feature. So that's what we look at. So again, when we went to our corporate members, they were looking for that certification process. So within supply chain, one of the programs that I oversee, you do have to be a certified Aboriginal business to partake with that. We do have a gated community of an Aboriginal procurement marketplace. And we have reached out to our corporate members. So we have 80 corporate members that have joined us. They have access to that gated community as well. And when they go in there, they see all 750 of our certified Aboriginal businesses. And they're the ones that if they wanted to utilize Indigenous businesses that are certified, they would utilize that group. So again, we offer quite a few different programs and supports for businesses, not just procurement. I think I'm focusing a lot on procurement because that's what today is about in supplier diversity. So as for the certification, we are a national organization as well. So we do certify across the country. We followed a lot with the federal government. So we do follow that 51% ownership and control. The other feature though is with Indigenous communities, it is rather unique because there will be impact benefit agreements with some communities, and with those communities, whoever has those agreements, they determine what is classified as an Indigenous business, and in some instances, it can be 50%. That's just something apart from what we do. So the businesses we're looking for are looking at growing apart from just that one client. So they're looking at all corporations across the country. We are really focusing a lot on Canada right now. We're trying to increase that. When we look at the federal government, there has been a program in place since 1996. It has never broken 1%. The last recorded publicly available data that I've seen was in 2015. And at that point, it was 0.47% of their spend with Indigenous businesses. In December 2019, there was a mandate that was sent out to the Minister of PSPC to increase Indigenous procurement to 5%. And that 5% is a floor, not a ceiling. So we're focusing a lot on the Canadian market right now. But again, that to be said, we are doing trade missions across the world with another department from CCAB. So currently our certification is nationally, but we are working for Indigenous businesses that are looking to export as well.
Thank you, Philip and Cassandra. And thank you to all the panelists who are continuing to answer questions as we receive them in the chat as well. So some generalities and questions we are receiving seem to be from people perhaps interested in learning more about your organization, or if there is a membership without actually going through the certification process as well. Stephanie, I might get you to speak on that as well, and perhaps give some examples of some clients or companies who you work with who are participating in the supplier diversity programs.
Yes, no, great conversation so far. So WEConnect International partners with, we're up to 116 multinational corporations and governments. And they join us because they have an objective to diversify their supply chains, and specifically because they have commitments to increasing the purchases from women-owned businesses. Some examples would include the big names like Procter & Gamble, Walmart, Unilever, Google. In terms of the sectors, we're well represented in pharmaceutical, financial services, automotive, technology, and so on. So I would invite anyone who is interested to go on the website and take a look. They're all listed. And I always say, look at that and see if you've got like prospective clients on that list. So we help the corporations find women businesses in different ways. We're very focused on the procurement piece. So doing matchmaking events. And when you're certified with WEConnect International, you can participate in these activities in Canada as well as all our regions around the world. So if you want to go to a Europe conference or a South Africa conference, you will be recognized there as well and be able to get matches with the buyers. We do meet the buyer activities every month. We do exclusive training and mentoring programs with our corporate members. And we also have our WeCommunity digital platform where buyers and sellers can search for each other and also post procurement opportunities and respond to them. And that's the women businesses with the corporations and governments, but also the women businesses with each other. So, you know, that's how they can advance their own supplier diversity and their purchases. And I'm going to end and then pass it on to Cassandra, I believe, but it's worth mentioning that our team works not only on doing the matches, but we also put a lot of resources into building greater commitments from our members. And we recently launched our Rise to the Challenge campaign, where we're asking the corporations to make large, bold public commitments on women-owned spend. And some of them have risen to the challenge, so you can see them on our website. And we think this is going to create even more opportunities for women businesses. So that's a little bit of how we work with our members in terms of the supplier diversity and inclusion, you know, umbrella.
Let me just piggyback on top of that. Thanks, Stephanie. So basically, Stephanie's hit on a number of things. We used to rhyme off that, you know, at CAMPS, we had about, you know, 80 to 85. That number's been growing incredibly over the past year or more. We've had a number of organizations who are recognizing the value of diversity and what it looks like across the landscape. So we were started by the automotive. So GM's a member, FCA's a member, Toyota's a member, you know, Ford's a member, and the ICT community. So of course we had Cisco coming in there, we had IBM coming in there, as well as financial services. RBC was one of our big guys. But when you look at the list today, as Stephanie said, check out everybody's list to see who's on board there. All the automotives are sitting there. They are all interested in driving supplier diversity, driving with diverse suppliers. We have our financial, all the big banks across Canada have a supplier diversity program. When I look at the IT world, Apple's come to us this year, Facebook's come to us this year. We see all the IT companies are now interested in how do I make sure the diversity is represented in what they do. When we have our communications in Canada, we have the TELUS sitting there, the Rogers sitting there, the Bell sitting there. I mean, most recently we've seen retailers like Sobeys come on board, TJX come on board. I mean, we have the Port of Halifax and Nova Scotia come on. You can go across Canada, people are interested. The federal government as well is interested. We have municipalities coming to the door. If you have a business, and depending on your value proposition, there is an opportunity for you, I'm sure, out there, because the range of the corporates who are interested in this. As Stephanie's identified, we take trade missions around the world to our various areas. And so where we have members. So if you're interested in being if you're export ready and interested in going, we can facilitate that. The time now, however, is what we're saying is that if you're nationally focused, we can help you. If you're regionally focused, we can help you. Nationally focused, we can help you. Internationally focused. The opportunity with everybody here on the screen, we have the opportunity to connect you up, and we just like to get you into the marketplace where there's plenty of opportunities. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you both for that. I'm hoping, Philip, you can talk to us a little bit about the impact of being supplier diverse for companies, the benefits of supplier diversity and what those companies experience.
Okay, I can touch on both as a supplier, why supplier diversity is important, as well as a corporation. So I wasn't quite sure which leanings you wanted me to go to, but I think for the corporations, I mean, when the corporations start looking at supplier diversity or Indigenous procurement, they are actually bringing in new and innovative suppliers. So many of these corporations have been quite complacent. They always use the same suppliers and they go on and on and on. Maybe that's easier for them. It's hard to say. Like, I mean, if they have someone that's been working good, but I think by including diverse suppliers in it, it does give them quite often a better product. A lot of our businesses are very eager to get in there. We're really flexible. Some of these other corporations, when they've had the suppliers for a number of years, they just keep getting the same service. It's been adequate. It's fulfilled what they required. But I think as the economy grows and as businesses grow and technology grows, I think they have to grow with their suppliers. So by utilizing a supplier diversity program, I think it is helping them meet a lot of their targets. And if you look at their ESG goals as well, that does help with their ESG goals. So supplier diversity does make good business sense for corporations. And on the other spectrum, when you look at the diverse owned businesses, by joining our councils and by becoming part of our groups, you do get that collective, you do get that market opportunity to grow your business. Again, it is the networking. And as Daryl, as Deidre, as all of us have said, it is a marketing opportunity. And so many of our businesses right now don't realize the value of the marketing opportunities that these councils provide. And again, how often are you going to get to go and talk to a chief procurement officer from a corporation unless you join our councils, you come to these events and meet. As Cassandra talked about, the corporates as well. I mean, at CCAB, we do have over 500 corporates. The 80 that I referred to were the ones that done an extra step and actually joined procurement as an Aboriginal procurement champion. Some of them are a little bit leery because to become an Aboriginal procurement champion, we actually have the contact person. So within our gated community, any of our CAB companies or certified Aboriginal businesses, when they go on that marketplace, they're going to see, so say it was CAMSC was an Aboriginal procurement champion, they would have Cassandra Dorrington's phone number and her email address, and they can get in touch with them. It's really frustrating for a smaller business that isn't part of a network to actually reach out to some of these bigger corporations when you go onto their websites and it's info@abc.com and there's no connection. So I think that's the 80 that we have right now has made that extra commitment that they're willing to talk. And again, I think all of our groups, we really want to facilitate engagement between the buyers and the sellers. And that's what's going to make things successful. And it's a relationship building. So I think by joining supplier diversity councils, it's going to help your business and open up new markets for you.
Thank you, Philip from CCAB. Thank you for catching that, Sylvia. Sylvia, are you able to expand on that a little bit and talk about some of the benefits companies receive?
Absolutely. So, of course, number one benefit is having verified businesses, right? Working with our councils, you can rest assured that all the businesses are verified. They are truly eligible for the corporate and government supplier diversity programs. So without verification, there's a tendency for fraud. Some of our corporate member organizations, they actually get audited on their supplier diversity programs, and that verification is highly important for them. So that's why we highly recommend the certification for diverse businesses. Also, just, you know, I'll just second what Philip already mentioned, that supplier diversity kind of drives competition in the largest pool of diverse suppliers, you know, like companies, instead of sticking with one supplier who was in the supply chain for 40 years, now have a larger pool, many times more innovative businesses that we are seeing in diverse community. I also want to mention employee satisfaction. We are finding that employees have more fun working with large corporations if they see that their company supports diverse businesses and buys from them. And I want to say it's always smart to support your customers. Many times the reason why auto industry supports Black and Black communities and women is because they are hoping that those women and Blacks will eventually buy that car. So if as a woman I see that specific company buys from women, I will have a tendency to go and buy from them. So I just want to say that just in case any corporates made it to the call. When it comes to the impact, like I really want to touch on the impact and the importance of supplier diversity, because I don't think we got to mention it today. So I see two very important components of why we need to be doing supplier diversity in Canada. So number one is social, right? It's part of corporate social responsibility. It's about how we give back to the communities. And it is somehow still prevalent in Canada, companies looking at how do we support, how do we help. But I also want to mention that the second very important component of why we need to be doing supplier diversity is economic impact. So there are three massive results that happen with supplier diversity programs. Number one, we are growing diverse, many times smaller businesses. We are helping them scale up, improve, and grow. That results in uplift for communities where those businesses are located. So it creates new jobs, it increased wages, tax revenues. So it's really good for the communities, but it also good for Canada. So it will lead to improved economic growth in Canada. So I just really want to mention it, as we are still struggling with COVID and we are looking at hopefully post-COVID, economic recovery. We will consider supplier diversity and we will make a case for it, and we will really decide to support small businesses, diverse businesses, and really create more and more opportunities to help them get into large currently not much accessible supply chains. So as councils, I believe I'm speaking on behalf of everybody, we are working very hard to make sure that those opportunities are created and that diverse businesses are supported. So come and join us, join the movement.
Thank you, Sylvia and Philip, for that. I'm going to move over into a couple of questions we're receiving from panelists. So Cassandra, I think you touched on this a little bit in your response, but wondering if any councils have information regarding federal procurement and how that could work. Perhaps you could expand on that, Cassandra?
Okay, yeah, there is, as Philip has indicated, there's a 5% the government's put out there for Indigenous businesses, but they have not put out anything else definitive like that for any of the other diverse groups. Sylvia, Daryl, and I are sitting around the supplier advisory table with PSPC. They have very clearly said to us they are working on a policy statement about including other diverse suppliers. We have not seen that yet, but we're anticipating the next 2 months that they will have a draft as to how they're going to address that. Because as the federal government is looking to rejig, they recognize they need to bring the diverse suppliers to the table. And now they're just trying to determine what does that look like. And so we're anticipating hearing that from them. And already they have some pilots that they've done for women, pilots they've done for Black business owners. They've a couple pilots, but nothing definitive as in a policy statement. And we're looking to drive them towards, with the public advocacy we're doing, drive them towards a policy statement on this.
Thanks, Cassandra. Daryl, I'm hoping you could help with another question we received in the chat here. So this is specific to medical schools and trying to procure with them. But I think that overall question is, if you have a small or narrower target group or audience that you're looking to sell to, are there benefits to becoming certified, or how does that work if you've got a narrower audience?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think that, you heard earlier the kind of the vast array of corporations that have started to build out supplier diversity and really are embracing engaging diverse suppliers into their supply chain. And they all have a huge variety of needs. It's funny, Cassandra was just talking about the federal government. And when you hear the federal government talk about what they're procuring, it is amazing. They procure everything. And as well, many of our other corporate partners are procuring a variety of things. So, and that is our goal, our task then is to help to try to make those connections between what our corporate and government partners are looking for and what our variety of suppliers are offering. So I would certainly say, yes, there is opportunities. I won't sugarcoat it. It may be more challenging and you may have to, I talked about having to work, and I think that this may be where you might have to work a little bit harder. But I think, again, what you heard earlier was that this is an opportunity it's an access opportunity, right? It's helping to get your foot in the door. So this is another tool that you can leverage to help to grow your opportunities.
I don't know if anyone else would like to provide commentary on that.
If I can just say one thing on that, what we have seen is that corporates hand off opportunities and suppliers throughout the network. So the nice thing about is if you come inside and you're talking to someone and your product and service does not particularly fit them, they know a number of other people say, hold on, let me connect you. So this gives them an opening inside. So you might not directly hit the bullseye to begin with, but they might guide you to someone else that guides you to someone else. And as Sylvia said, this is a relationship business we're in. All these people know each other, and your opportunity to get in there and share what you're doing increases your ability to be able to hit the target of who you're looking to reach. Or as Daryl just said, you might not realize they're looking for exactly what you have, but they don't have that listed in all their list of things. And you might be able to lock into that just by that because you've come into the network. Okay.
Philip?
Yes, I also wanted to touch on some of the provincial and territorial governments are actually starting to implement targets. I know that the government of the Yukon introduced an Indigenous procurement policy within their mandate in December last year. I was on the call with the Northwest Territorial government as well, and they are going to be doing that. The other thing that about the one with the medical supplies or the teaching schools, we actually have a number within supply chains. We do have 4 universities that joined us. And when you do look at universities, they're just like municipalities as well. So when you look at all the buying things that they have and all of those departments, mean, I was quite pleased to see the universities that are focusing on that. And I think with Economic Reconciliation and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for Indigenous Peoples, more companies are focusing on engagement. And I think that's coming stronger and stronger all the time. I can't speak to the other groups as much, so that's where I focus the most on, is on our Indigenous people. So there are other groups, and I think it's going to get stronger and stronger all the time.
And Daryl, do you have something to add as well?
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing, because I think, you know, we've been talking about the corporate opportunities, but I think the other thing, and Sylvia mentioned this in the chat here, it's about building a stronger and broader network base. And so one of the key things that we're doing is not only connecting diverse suppliers with our corporate partners, but we're connecting them with each other as well. And that just opens up such a broader opportunity for our businesses, right? So not only within the corporate base, but within the other diverse businesses, and not only within our own constituency group. The collective here, we do joint events, and so we're helping to connect all diverse businesses together. So I think that that's an important message to get across.
To all of our attendees today, continue to ask questions via the chat function as well. Deirdre, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about some of the success stories that you've had, and you can share with us perhaps some inspiration for participants on the call who are considering whether they should become certified.
Sure. I wanted to mention, though, as a little bit towards the last point, one of the things that I do suggest for suppliers who are considering certification and not sure if their goods or services would match to our purchasers, to go to each of the Supply Council websites and have a look at those corporate membership pages that have all the logos on it for all of the corporate members who do support supplier diversity in Canada. As Daryl mentioned, we work very closely together. We often find ourselves at the same events, and so those corporates you'll be able to speak to them at those events. So you may be certified with IWSCC, and there might be another corporate member who doesn't necessarily support IWSCC yet, but they do support WBE Canada. So you still would have access to speak to that corporate at the events. So it's a great idea if you're thinking, should I, shouldn't I? Go have a look at those pages, the membership pages that show all of the logos for all of the great organizations across the country that support supplier diversity, to see, are these people I would like to have as my target customers? Are these people I would like to do business with? And as Daryl mentioned, of course, the government, the federal government buys just about everything. We were on a panel with someone a few weeks ago, and she's apparently worked at the federal government in purchasing for about 30 years. And she said something about how she had maybe 10 different things that she's come across that the federal government does not purchase. So, you know, they purchase quite a number of things. As far as success stories go, being the newest supply council, we don't have as many as maybe the other supply councils. We have seen a lot of support for diverse businesses, particularly through the pandemic. So we have a number of businesses that were able to pivot to selling PPE, and it was something that was able to keep their doors open. And in fact, several of them actually added employees through the course of the pandemic. And so we have seen that, and that's really been very helpful. The interest that the corporates have in speaking to the suppliers, I think is very beneficial for suppliers, even though it might be not specifically time for you to do business with these corporations. The fact that they have interest in you, are willing and want to work with you, I think is very beneficial to suppliers, particularly if you are finding that you're struggling a bit through the pandemic, or if you are newer and a little bit unsure of yourself as a business. But maybe I'll split that with one of the other panelists to see if they can share some of the great success stories they've had being a little bit longer in the Supplier Diversity Council world. Anyone else like to share?
I can start. I know that we have had some great success within the Indigenous world. We talk a lot about that 5% with the federal government, but if you look at the resource sector, especially in Canada, we have done really well. Certain areas, if you look at the Wood Buffalo region in Fort McMurray region of Alberta, between three of our Aboriginal procurement champions, we have Imperial, Suncor, and Syncrude. They spend over $1 billion a year with Indigenous businesses. So, I mean, that's a great success. One of the things that we also want to relay to our businesses is every time you get a contract, you are taking that product or service from an incumbent. It could also be an Indigenous business. So we want to make sure that our businesses are always going to be flexible. They're always going to be working together to make sure that they can keep that contract. Because as I said, like every time you get a contract, there's someone else that's lost that contract. Successes are coming in all measures. It's pretty interesting times. Some businesses, they feel if they don't get every contract, it's not a success, but that's not really realistic. I mean, if you go to 10 businesses to try and get a contract, and if you get 1 or 2, I think that's a success. And I think it is growing. And Daryl and all of them talk about the opportunities between the smaller businesses. So we also try and encourage that. And I think as this supplier diversity grows in Canada, when you bring in more stakeholder groups as well, you get that innovation, you get that really unique business models when different suppliers come together to partner for opportunities. So that's something as well that we try and promote a lot.
And Sylvia, do you have some thoughts to add to that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back to what Deidre mentioned at the beginning about certification. Even though we are seeing lots of success stories, I want all the listeners to know that supplier diversity is not a magic button. It doesn't work like overnight success. It's a relationship builder. So we do have in our database, we do have suppliers anywhere between startups to multi-million-dollar companies. So of course we are seeing success. We are seeing businesses scale up and growth. I just want to set a realistic expectations. It takes time to develop the relationships and succeed. So there are success stories, you know, if you are looking at businesses who came and joined, became certified, and, you know, the next day Staples promotional products tapped them on the shoulder because they had exactly what Staples was looking for. So within 2 weeks, they actually went from being certified to being a supplier. Well, this does not happen every day, and it doesn't happen to everybody. I just want to say, developing those networks, even within the diverse supplier community, finding the right partner, scaling up, partnering on RFPs, learning how to respond to RFPs, finding that connection within the supply chain. These are the success stories from my perspective, where I see women-owned businesses specifically finding the new ways of doing the business, scaling up, progressing forward, and, you know, moving forward and scaling up and growing. So again, the success for your business might be different than for other businesses. Maybe it's not the opportunity with the large corporation. Maybe it's with somebody in the supply chain. Maybe you will get connected to an existing supplier, you know, to supply to them. So there are so many options and opportunities in supply chains. I just want to mention that, you know, set the realistic expectations. Do not come with the expectation that I certify tomorrow, I have a contract. This is not what we do. We actually help you understand the supply chains, get connected, and move forward and build a sustainable long-term business, not overnight success. So Cassandra.
I'm gonna piggyback on top of that. I mean, what I've seen and what CAMSC has seen over the 16, 17 years is that, one, is the opportunities are out there. So for them to get opportunities, for them to actually identify and meet with corporates is huge. To develop the relationships is even better. You get invited into corporate headquarters. You get invited into development opportunities at corporate. Accenture had a mentorship program. Help the business to develop their own business plans. Help them to get better for giving all of their services to other corporations. RBC said, we'd like that. We're going to do that with a couple more suppliers. TELUS said, let's do that. So there's all these development opportunities that our suppliers get to have. And then we also have suppliers that have been working for years to the point that now they get to be preferred supplier for an organization. But that comes after a period of time of delivering well, and getting acknowledged for that. And a preferred supplier, not a preferred diverse supplier, but a preferred supplier, because they have gone beyond that entry point into they are developing, they are delivering as they should. And so therefore, also we've seen some of our suppliers get noticed. All of a sudden they get into being recognized for an award that gets them into another development opportunity, into another chain. All in all, as Sylvia and all the others have said, any opportunity that gets you in, that gets you in front of a buyer, whether it be from another supplier or from a corporate, gives you an opportunity to shine and grow. When we get suppliers, even when they come in to speak at conferences, we've had then corporates come up to them. I didn't know that's what you did. I want to be able to talk to you some more. That opportunity to share their story is an opportunity they wouldn't have had if not being part of this whole network inside there. So there's so many successes, little ones that build on us. And I can say that we're seeing over $1 billion a year in spend with diverse suppliers. And that's a very conservative estimate because we know a lot more than that goes on. So I just say, if you're not in the network, please join.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, all of you. I'm trying to be respectful of our attendees' time. Stephanie, I'm hoping you can leave us with some final thoughts for those on the call who are looking at how to get started or what their next steps should be.
Well, thank you. Honored to have the last word, but I think we've all said it. The importance of joining the network. Look at the different organizations that are here today and the ones that match your business strategies. It's worth looking into further. So, as a supplier, first step, my parting thought is go and do your research and then join something. And for the corporations who want to know more, again, like all of us can help you with your supplier diversity programs. So reach out, don't hesitate. And I think together we can really make a difference in the economy and our different stakeholder groups. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you. This was impressive for us to be able to pull together the heads of all of these councils in a short period of time and provide such an informative platform for primarily our women entrepreneurs and those who are on the call today looking to learn more. We will be sure to email all of you this afternoon a copy or a communication which gives you a direct contact at each organization or who you can speak with. Each organization has given us a contact for our StrikeUP attendees. So you can connect with them and find out more about the organizations and how you can get started. Later in next week, we will also be sure to send you out a link as well for a copy of today's webinar for you to enjoy and reference as well. Thank you on behalf of StrikeUP Canada, on behalf of all of our supply councils, and of course, all of you who took the time to join us today. We appreciate you being here with us and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.